back to my channel. Hope you're all doing well out there. And today we're going to head back to Canon Films territory. But before we do that, do me a favor, like, comment, and subscribe. Join me here, I would appreciate that. Today we're going to talk about the first film Charles Bronson ever did for Canon Films, and that film is 10 to Midnight. Yes, this film came out March 11th of 1983. It had a budget of $4.5 million, and upon release, it made a little over $7 million. This film was directed by J. Lee Thompson. J. Lee Thompson and Charles Bronson worked together a lot, but J. Lee Thompson did a lot of big films, very journeyman-like film career. If you check out his filmography that he did, he did the Guns of the Navarone in '61. He did the original Cape Fear in '62. He did Conquest of the Planet of the Apes, the Battle for the Planet of the Apes, and with Bronson, he did St. Ives, he did The White Buffalo, which I'm going to review coming up in the fall or in the wintertime coming up. He also did The Evil That Men Do with Bronson. He did Murphy's Law with Bronson, which is another one I like a lot. Death Wish 4, The Crackdown, and Messenger of Death. And he also did the horror film Happy Birthday to Me back in 1981. And in this film, we got, like I said, Charles Bronson in his first film working for Canon Films. He would go on to do a lot with Canon Films over the years. Lisa Eilbacher plays Laurie Kessler. Charles Bronson's Leo Kessler, her father, and Lisa Eilbacher was in, most famously, you'll probably remember her from Beverly Hills Cop, where she plays Axel's friend who works for the art gallery in Beverly Hills. Andrew Stevens plays Paul McCann. He is this young detective who ends up partnering up with Leo Kessler. Gene Davis plays Warren Stacy, our serial killer of this film. And he had a pretty decent career. He actually showed up in the Hitcher as a state trooper, and he was also in Universal Soldiers as a lieutenant. I just thought those were pretty interesting little credits there. The great Jeffrey Lewis, who has a ton of credits throughout his career. Sadly, the man has since passed away. Plays Dave Dante. He plays a scumbag lawyer. Wilford Brimley plays Leo Kessler's captain. And in this film, we're thrust right in. We see Leo right in the beginning of the film in the police department, and they're already after this killer. This killer has killed several young women in the Los Angeles area, and they have no leads, there's no evidence, nothing. And Leo is a highly decorated police officer and a police detective, and he is on the case trying to figure out who is doing these awful and brutal crimes. And pretty soon we're introduced to our serial killer of the piece, played by Gene Davis, Warren Stacy. And we see him go into the movies, and he strikes up a conversation with the manager of the theater, and these two young women he starts hitting on, and they totally don't want nothing to do with him, and they ask him to move, and he does move. And right away we get definitely creepy vibes from Warren here, and he sneaks out of the theater, and he goes and he kills this woman and this guy she's having sex with in this van. Now, Warren has an interesting way of pulling off these murders. He strips down completely naked, which I've never seen done in a film before until I saw this one. And he opens the van and kills the woman who has rejected him. He's tried to come on to her before, and she's rejected him, and the guy she's with. And they even say during the film that, he usually only kills young women. This guy just happened to be there, and so he was very unlucky to be where he was. And he stabs her. She runs through the forest trying to get away. He kills the man first. She runs through the forest, and he ends up catching up with her and killing her. And he sneaks back to the movie theater, fully dressed, sits down, and on the way out, he makes sure to bring up a conversation with those two young ladies he was sitting on earlier, so they remember him just in case the cops do ask him about that night. He can say where he was, and he's an airtight alibi because he's spoken to several people that were there, and they saw him there. And this Leo kind of knows it's this guy after they talk to him a few times, but they don't have any evidence. There's no blood on his clothes. They can't place him at the time of these murders where they took place. So Leo is getting severely frustrated, especially when the killer, Warren, sets his eyes on Laurie. So Leo, being frustrated, even though he knows it's him, but they can't prove it in a court of law, he takes some blood samples out of the coroner's office and plants them in Warren's apartment on his clothes. They finally get the arrest warrant to bring him in. They're going to charge him with murder. And then Paul finds out that the blood was... And I like this aspect of the film. Paul's pretty straight-laced, but he likes Lori a lot. He goes to a party with her. We see that during the film. And he wants to get Warren off the streets just as bad as Leo does. Paul finds out that Leo planted the blood on Warren's clothes, and he tells Leo, because Jeffrey Lewis's character, Dave, tells Paul, I'm going to put you on the witness stand. You better not lie. And this is weighing on Paul because he's an honest cop. And he tells Leo, he goes, look, what are you going to have me perjure myself to get you off? You did something. We're going to get this guy eventually. I know why you want to get him, but this isn't the right way to go about it. And Leo does the right thing and goes to the district attorney and tells him that he planted the evidence. He gets fired, but he's very much watching Warren. And finally, Warren makes his move on Leo's daughter. She lives in an apartment with a bunch of other nursing students that she works with and goes to school with. And one of those nursing students is Kelly Preston, although she's not listed as Kelly Preston in the credits. She's listed, I don't know if I'm going to say this right, but Kelly Palzis, Palzis. It's funny, she also did Christine that same year for John Carpenter, and she had no problem using her regular name, so I don't know if she was just trying to hide the fact she was doing this low-budget film for Canon. I don't know, but she is in the film, and she gets killed by Warren. So basically, Warren kills all of her roommates and is threatening Lori, and Leo shows up, and we get this scene with Lori's running down the street. She escapes the apartment, she's running down the street, and Warren's chasing her butt-ass naked down the street, and finally the cops catch up, stop him, and so does Leo, and Warren throws his knife down and starts going his diatribe about, you can't hurt me, I'm sick, I need help, you can't arrest me, and he looks at Leo all serious and goes, I will be out eventually, and I will come back, and Leo goes, basically shoots him right in the head, and that is the end of 10 Till Midnight. What to like about this film? I think it's very unique. It's definitely, I would consider this a horror cop movie. It's definitely a slasher movie. And Warren, as the main bad guy, is a very interesting killer. Gene Davis, in the film, he's a very attractive guy, but he starts off really nice with girls, and the conversation turns creepy. He's very awkward with women. So you can tell these murders, besides the fact that he likes them, are a way of fulfilling his sexual arousal. Like, he can't possibly have a meaningful relationship with these women, and they keep turning him down because he turns crazy on them. And he justifies it by killing them, but really he could never, even if they were turned on by him, he could never have a healthy sexual relationship with these women. He's too fucked in the head, and all he wants to do is kill them. He wants to kill as many as he can. And he's definitely an evil son of a bitch. Now, the thing of him getting naked and killing these women, when I first saw this years ago, it kind of made me pause. I'm like, oh, this is interesting. Because you have this guy on screen nude as he's killing these women. And there's a lot of nudity in this film. For sure. From Warren Stacy's, the character, to other women in this film. I mean, this film is not shy about the nudity. And they do throw the blood around. Although I will say it's not overly gory. It's pretty tame by today's standards, but the blood does flow. It does. I love Charles Bronson here. I'm a big Charles Bronson fan. I think he's good here, and this is definitely a different character than Paul Kersey from Death Wish, considering Leo does want revenge on Warren because he knows he's coming for his daughter. But it's definitely played a lot differently here. He definitely plays it a lot differently here than he did in Death Wish. Definitely I think the cast is pretty good. Gene Davis is really good as the psycho killer. Some of his line deliveries aren't the greatest, but overall, I did appreciate his performance. And this is a really interesting look at a different kind of serial killer. I do enjoy this movie. I think it's a lot better than people give it credit for. It's not on the level of Silence of the Lambs or films like that, but I think it's a film, because it came from Canon, it's lower budget. It's definitely sleazy, and it gives you that grimy tone to it, but I think it's a lot better of a film than people give it credit for. And if you've never seen it, I highly recommend it. I already told you Kelly Preston's in the film. You can see her. She's in and out of the film as one of Laurie's friends, but at the end, when Warren comes for them at the apartment, she gets killed. First one to get killed in the door. The film was made in '82, 2 years before DNA was starting to be used by police departments across the country to solve crimes. Canon Films, this is unprecedented at the time. Canon Films sold the rights to this film for TV for $2.5 million, which was unheard of at the time. And this movie was pre-sold before the script was even finished, honestly. So they already had this pre-sold overseas. This movie was already in the profits before it was even released. And Canon did that a lot back then. Also, that was part of their undoing. They were spending money on a lot of projects that didn't make any return. So, Canon's famous, and there's a great documentary. You can watch it free on YouTube called Electric Boogaloo, the story of Canon Films. I highly recommend it if you're interested in finding out about this notorious film company from the 80s. I mean, there's a bunch of Canon Films I have a soft spot for. Even Lance Hull, who would go on to write Missing in Action 1 and direct Missing in Action 2, the beginning, was a producer on this film, and he's an interview on that special edition Blu-ray from Scream Factory. I think this is a pretty smart and clever serial killer film. If you've never seen it, check it out. That Blu-ray is still available from Scream Factory. I don't know if it's streaming anywhere. Check it out. It might be streaming somewhere. I think it was on Tubi at some point. God bless Tubi, never changed. They're awesome. But if you've never seen it, check it out. It's definitely worth your time. It's pretty well handled by J. Lee Thompson. The acting's pretty damn good. And it gives you a different look at a serial killer movie. And I appreciate that for sure. So at the end of the day, I'm not saying this is nowhere near Silence of the Lambs territory, but I enjoy it so much. I'm going to give this one an 8.5 out of 10. It's really well done, and I really enjoyed this film. So yeah, 8.5 out of 10 for 10 to Midnight. Have you ever seen this film? Leave a comment down below. Let me know. Hit the thumbs up. Hit the subscribe button. Share this video. I greatly would appreciate that. I'll be back soon with a review for Road Games, but until next time, bye.